The NSO will be presenting the first advance estimate of this year's GDP. Now, this estimate is important because based on this GDP number, the Finance Ministry will forecast next year's GDP and fiscal deficit. Lata is here to tell us what we should expect. Lata?
Well, first, why is this important? It's after all only a GDP number of the current year. See, this is the first actual estimate. Until now, what RBI and the banks put out is a forecast. Here, the NSO has 9 months of data and they are estimating the full year, so it's a more reliable number. Secondly, in this alone, the nominal GDP is more important than the real GDP. Now, what is real GDP? You assume that prices have not changed from last year to this year and you tell how much the GDP, that is real. But here the nominal GDP becomes important in this particular estimate because this is the first step to the making of the budget. This one tells you how large the economy is and whether the deficit is therefore 6.4%. Also, based on what size of the nominal GDP is this year, the budget will estimate what you can assume for next year. Therefore, what tax growth, what fiscal deficit we can assume for next year. Literally, the budget is put together starting today 5:30. After this number is available to North Block and to everyone. Okay, so what should we expect? We did a poll and our poll says that today's number will say that the FY23 current year GDP in real terms grew at 6.9%. But like I told you, nominal is more important. Nominal GDP will have grown by 15.8%. I got many estimates who said even more than 16%. Why? Because inflation was high. So even if the volume of goods grew by about 7%, because prices grew so much, you're going to get a much larger nominal GDP number. So the budget had estimated actually that this year the nominal GDP will grow by only 11.1%. They estimated that this year the economy will be 258 trillion rupees. But what the NSO is likely to tell us today, that it will have grown at 15.8%. So the size of the economy will be 269 trillion. That means a much larger fiscal deficit. You know, 6.4% of 258 trillion is smaller than 6.4% of 269 trillion. So there is another 60,000 crore the government can spend, but that's not new news. The government already knew that and they've perhaps already spent it. What will be important is what happens from here on. We have done a poll even on that, and economists tell us that they expect next year's GDP to be only 5.8% higher. That is real. Nominal GDP will be only 10 or 10.5% higher. Why? Because inflation is seen receding next year, therefore not much help in boosting the economy. This will have two implications on the budget. One, you can't assume a high tax growth because all corporates are going to belabor with smaller price increases. Secondly, the fiscal deficit space also will be less because suppose they bring the deficit down to 6%. It is going to be 6% of a slightly smaller GDP than the growth was this year. Those are the reasons why today's number is important.
All right, Lata, thank you.